So, you could not live with your own failure. Where did that bring you? Back to him. What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Anderson here, and this is The Walking Dead Season 10, Episode 21, Diverged. So this one was definitely a lot more of a slower episode. And it's kind of funny because when I looked in IMDb to get the titles of the last two episodes so I could title my last review video, I did notice the review scores for this one and for the last one. And both of them are very low. Like Splinter got a 5.2, I think, and this one got like a 4.7, which just blows my mind. Because I'm watching Fear the Walking Dead, and most of those episodes are getting in the 7s, couple of 8s. And that show is so poorly written. The narratives make no sense, the characters aren't likable, people survive because of the stupidest writing reasons. And somehow it's considered so much better than an episode like this. It's just so ridiculous, because this episode is not worth a 4.7. Yes, it's not as exciting as some of the other episodes, there's not as much tension, it's a lot more character focused, but sometimes that's good because it makes you care about these characters and want to see them survive. Whereas on Fear the Walking Dead, there's like 2 or 3 that I really care about if they die. This show, there's so many I don't want to see go. And episodes like this help build that. Now granted, I'm not saying this episode was perfect. I myself wouldn't rank it above like a 7.5 maybe. And there are a couple reasons for that. First of all, I do think the overall story, what it was supposed to show, is that both Daryl and Carol are doing their own thing, but they're not quite as successful because either they're distracted by what's going on, or they just need help, and trying to do everything on their own doesn't work. For Daryl's side of the story, though, I don't think that was shown clearly enough. He didn't encounter much difficulty being out there. Like, his bike ran down at some point, so he had to go get something to fix it. And that's really all that happened. He had a little bit of a scare because he fell down a hill, which kind of felt a little sloppy when it comes to Daryl. And then Walker falls on top of him and he manages to wrestle it off and kill it. It's one of those scenes where I don't really feel the tension because it's Daryl up against one Walker. Why should this be a tense scene? But that's what I mean, though, is that his whole story, that's really the only difficulty he encountered. Although I guess there was the one scene where he's up under the car and the Walker nearly crushed him because he kept moving around in the car and tipping it back and forth, which just felt a little oddly set up. So again, with the idea of what the theme is in my head, I don't feel like Daryl's story really showed that theme very well. And then for Carol, I think her story definitely showed the theme a lot more, because not only is she struggling with some of the basic tasks, but then she has that freak out at the end where she destroys the wall, and it shows where her mindset is. She is trying to help, she is trying to be a part of the community, but she's still got that side of her that just unleashes the rage from time to time. And I think she is still worried about that. However, the fact that a lot of it just comes down to she's chasing a rat, I didn't really find much interest in that story necessarily. It just felt like an odd choice, where it could have been, because Jerry mentioned all these different things that they need help with. It would have been more interesting if she just got overwhelmed because she was doing a whole lot. She was trying to do all these different things, but because she was trying to do too much, some things were breaking, some things weren't working. If that were more so her story, I think that would make a lot more sense. But because of a rat, that's why she has the freak out. I didn't find that all that engaging, I suppose. But really the biggest problem with this episode is by the end of it, Daryl and Carol, they still haven't reconciled. And I think that's the one thing that this episode really needed to sort of bookend this story. But the fact of the matter is they're both still keeping stuff from each other. They're both still not really talking it out. It's just the bare bones. How you doing? Good. Oh, how are you doing? Good. And that's kind of it. They're not really digging into the problem that both of them have, which is Daryl does blame Carol for a lot of what she's done, and Carol feels like a monster that Daryl's pushing away. And I think they do need to try to solve that issue, because the two of them working together is a very lethal combination, and it's something that might help them, especially into next season. Now, granted, this might be a story that's building up to next season, in which case I am still kind of feeling weird about that. Like I said in the last review, the kind of weird limbo feeling that I have in between the end of this season and the beginning of next one. This feels like season 10.5 to me. And maybe that's why a lot of people didn't like this episode, is because it does just feel like nothing really changed by the end of it. And I can understand that, but I think it does highlight the issues that these two have and that needs to be fixed. And so yeah, I will say I was a little disappointed that that's still an issue by the end of the episode, to be perfectly honest. But is it 4.7 out of 10 territory? Absolutely not. But I guess if this is the scale they're working for The Walking Dead, and this is the scale for Fear the Walking Dead, then a 7.8 out of here is still not quite as high as a 4.7 out of 10 up here. So maybe that's the mindset that some people are going into this with, but whatever the case, I am ready to end this season so that we can get into the next one, even though I'm not jumping right into the next one. But I am kind of excited to see what the final season holds. But with all that being said, on to the final episode. I'll see you there. And finally, episode 22, here's Negan. So like I said, I did happen to catch the IMDb ratings accidentally, and this one was the highest of the season at a 9.2, and I can kind of see why. This was an incredible look, finally, into Negan's backstory. Seeing where he came from, seeing how he became this person that he was. You could see where he was starting to become a better character. He was trying to work with the group, but it still kind of felt like he was more so doing it out of necessity of just trying to live. But now we're starting to see, no, he's been through shit. He has been through a lot of shit, and not really surprising, I suppose. I think we could all assume that he's been through a lot. But to actually see it, it just gives him so much more depth and honestly a lot more appreciation for his character. But what I also like is that they didn't just make him this nice, wholesome guy that was turned this way. Like, if he was this loving man, he'd had no faults, and then the world just took it all away from him after the apocalypse, it would feel a little cheesy, in my opinion. It's like, oh, look at what a good guy he was before. But he wasn't really a good guy. Not that he was evil, but he had his faults. You know, he had this rage inside of him that just snapped one time, and he beat up this asshole and got him fired from his job, and then that drove him into a further pit. We didn't get any sort of timeline as far as when he started seeing Janine. I might have missed this, but was Janine Lucille's sister or just one of her friends? Because I know she was on the phone with her, but it was hard to tell if she was calling her sister or her friend. But because we didn't get any sort of timeline, it's hard to know whether he started cheating on her because of losing his job and he just felt out of place, or if this is something that happened a while ago. But once again, it shows he wasn't just this innocent person. He had this darker side to him, but it's the normal dark side that you would expect not necessarily most people to have, because I think a lot of people, they tried not to do bad things. I'm definitely not justifying anybody who does fly into a rage and beat people up or cheat on people. But this evil persona of Negan that he's created, there wasn't really that before. He was just a normal guy who had his normal problems. And what happened between him and Lucille, what happened between him and this biker gang, that's what pushed him over the edge. And while it doesn't justify a lot of what he's done, it does at least make us understand where he was before and how he got to this point. And I think that's very important. Because I think nowadays we've seen a lot of movies and TV shows where they don't want to have these wholly evil villains. So they give them like a good reason why, or they give them a sympathetic backstory that makes you go, oh, I feel so bad for them. This is a nice balancing act though, where again, he wasn't just this wonderful guy who was so misunderstood and just went through a lot of problems. He was a dude with his faults that was pushed into this. To me, that makes him so much more understandable as a villain than the ones that just try to make them seem like they're good people that are misunderstood. It's a lot more realistic, it's a lot more grounded, and so I do appreciate them for doing that. I will also say I was a little concerned whenever we started doing the flashback within a flashback within a flashback, because that's something I always feel is just a weird concept for any TV show or movie, that you have to jump back 12 years, and they have to jump back 2 or 3 days, they have to jump back 6 weeks, and they have to jump back. There's a lot of flashbacks in this, but it makes sense in the context because he's telling this biker gang this whole story. And so it makes sense that he would keep going back further and further to explain, okay, well, let me explain where this started, and let me explain how I ended up here, and let me explain why I was out there, because he's just trying to basically buy himself some time. Although I did have this really funny joke in my head of Ted talking to his kids and How I Met Your Mother, and then cut to this guy, just stop talking. But ultimately what this all leads to, Negan breaking Lucille and having to burn it, and of course more so talking to his wife Lucille as he's laying the bat to rest. It does raise a lot of questions for next season. How are they going to handle Negan being in this group? You know, Maggie, as Carol says, wants him dead, and so he's going to have to probably fend for his own life while just trying to survive in here. I'm sure there are a lot of other people living there that don't necessarily want him around either, so they might side more with Maggie. So it leads to the possibility for a lot of tension within this group that is not good to have whenever you're just out there trying to survive a zombie apocalypse. I think it's a pretty good place to leave off for this season. Again, more so thinking about it as this chunk of 6 episodes was almost a season 10.5. This is the in-between from where we left off in season 10 and where we're going to go in season 11. I think this is a good place to kind of build up the tension for season 11. So I'm excited to see what they end up doing next. 2 other things that I did want to bring up. First of all, with Lucille, I think there were a lot of really good scenes between her and Negan. I think that chemistry really brought the interest and the care I felt throughout most of the episode for him. I think also that scene whenever she reveals that she knew about the affair and that he had made up for it a long time ago, I thought that scene hit really hard. Because if you've ever been cheated on, which I have, the idea that you would let them try to make it up is a really difficult one. Because a lot of people that haven't been cheated on, I know their mindset would probably be, why would you stay with somebody who cheated on you? But the fact of the matter is, if you love them enough, you will want to stay with them regardless. And most of the time what that leads to is they get cheated on again because the person that they love is not changing. And that's something that unfortunately a lot of people don't realize. But in this case, because of what happened with her cancer diagnosis, there's a lot that made him realize, wait, I really screwed up here. And I need to do everything I can to be there for her and make it up to her. And so I think that scene where she reveals that he made it up to her, not only with that story, but also the performances from both of them in that scene as well, it really did get me in the emotions that I was not expecting to feel throughout most of the story. But also her decision to take herself out, whether it was because he was held up for too long, so she just decided, all right, I'd rather go out my own way than to this cancer, or whether she just felt like she needed to release him because he was staying with her. He was doing all of this for her, and so she just felt, if I just go, then he can live a happier life and try to actually survive with other people. I don't know what the thinking was exactly, but it is just a heartbreaking scene for him to finally get back with her treatment stuff and to see what she did to herself. I mean, it's an awful feeling. So I really do think they captured the emotion properly for a lot of these scenes. And I'm very impressed that they managed to do that with a character as despicable as Negan has been, to bring him around and make him a lot more interesting and also not necessarily, again, not sympathetic, but at least more understandable as a villain. And somebody that I feel like the audience can start to root for a little bit now, seemingly maybe trying to turn his life around, maybe trying to almost make up for what he's done before. I think it was a very clever episode to show all of that. So very impressed with this. But to give final thoughts on season 10, and again, kind of season 10.5, I think overall this season was very enjoyable. I think the story with the Whispers, it did go on a little bit too long. There were some moments with Alpha that I felt like didn't show her in the best light as far as a villain, made her seem a little bit weak. And the group of the Whispers as well, it made them seem weak. But I think on the whole of it, they were a fairly interesting group. We did see a lot of what they were capable of this season as well, outside of just walking amongst the herd. And like I said earlier this season, some of the more romantic, emotional drama that everybody in the group goes through, some of that I'm not as invested in, but it does serve to flesh out these characters and show who they are as people outside of just trying to survive in this world. And I guess if you didn't have a lot of that, then you wouldn't really care about these characters as much. So I do understand it. I just think sometimes it gets a little bit melodramatic in my opinion. But these 6 episodes in between, I think they do serve their purpose of basically guiding the story along, getting us into season 11, showing us where everybody is by the end of this season. And while we still don't really know about this group that has captured Ezekiel, Princess Yumiko, and Eugene, I think we're seeing what they're capable of to the point where they do feel like a group that needs to be stopped. But we just still don't really know what their ultimate goal is. So it's hard to know whether they're an evil group or just a misunderstood group. But whatever the case, I'm definitely looking forward to season 11. We won't be back to the show for a little bit, but I'm hoping to get back to it pretty quickly because this final few episodes, they did get me excited to at least watch The Walking Dead, even if Fear the Walking Dead and The World Beyond maybe lost my interest a little bit. But that'll be it for me. So with all that being said, cue the outro. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching that review. I hope you enjoyed it. First and foremost, please leave your thoughts in the comments down below. I love having discussions with people, so whatever your thoughts were, whether you agree or disagree with me, please leave them down below. Obviously, no spoilers. Also, if you did find yourself enjoying this review and you want to see more, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps me out. I also have a gaming channel as well as a channel where I talk about soccer, so if you want to give those a follow as well, that would be much appreciated. And lastly, if you want to help me improve upon the quality of these channels, I do have a Patreon. All of this is in the description below. With all that being said, I hope you guys have a great day. I will talk to y'all later. Peace out.